Hey, what's up, Mumus? I am Muma, former professional Overwatch player, and now coach trying to help up-and-coming players who want to get better. Today I've got a fun video for you. I'm going to go through all the perks for Season 15 and give you my initial impressions on which ones are great, which ones are good, and which ones kind of just stink. After playing this patch for a few days, I've got a pretty good read on them, and I'm surprised just how much I enjoy them sometimes. The issue is that there are sometimes pretty big balance issues with them. I'd only argue that there are a few that are just straight up overpowered, but the problem with a lot of them is that one is just so much better than the other that there really isn't much consideration to have. The most fun characters this season to me are the ones whose perks are situational and you really have to think about. Alright, with all that said, if you enjoyed the video and find it helpful, please remember to like and subscribe as it helps me out a lot. Tell me in the comments which perk is your favorite and why. Let's get into it. For D.Va's minor perks, I'm taking Ejection Suit every time. Bunny Stomp is funny, but the extra HP both when you lose mech and when you ult is just too valuable to pass up. For her major perks, there's actually some merit to both. I think Shield System is stronger because it's more consistent and always benefits you, where the heavy rockets do slightly more damage per use. The slower rate of fire means if you miss even one, it's greatly reducing your DPS. For Doomfist's minor perks, they're both actually really good. Some of the best minor perks in the game, I'd say. With that said, I'm taking Survivor of the Fittest pretty much every time. The first part of it is only so-so, but giving an increase to his max overhealth and a passive that's entirely about using your abilities on a character who loves to use his abilities, it's just too good to pass up. His major perks are both really good too, and it can vary which one you want to pick based on what you're playing against. I like Seismic Empowerment more because of how strong your Empowered Punch is on Doomfist and how the entire kit revolves around it. Power Matrix is cool and all, but it's much easier for the enemy team to play around after they see you start using it. Hazard's minor perks are the first example of something some of the tank perks do that I'm really not a fan of. Off the top gives you bonus damage on his slash when you're hitting an enemy above 250 HP. Considering most of the time you want to be comboing a shot with your slash, this really only leaves tanks that you're getting the buff against, and this is not an ability you want to be using at the tanks. It just encourages a suboptimal playstyle, so take Reconstitution and make your Spike Guard even stronger. For his major perks, they're both solid, but the lifesteal's too good to pass up, especially considering the fact that you should be taking the minor perk that gives you more Spike Guard energy, so the synergy between them two is really strong here. Queen has some really strong perks too. Her minor perk, Batter Shout, that lets you reload your gun and gives your team increased reload speed is really good for a minor perk. Shout's already a solid engage, so encouraging your teammates to run in with you to get the buff is just a ton of value. Her major perks are both really good too, but the one that makes your Carnage impact damage gain 100% lifesteal is just so busted. You have to consider that not only are you getting 100% lifesteal on your swing, you're still getting lifesteal from the wounds, and this ability has the cooldown reduction mechanic based on how many people you hit. Hitting 2 people is super common, and that puts the ability on a 4-second cooldown. It's just completely insane. Pick it every time. Mauga's perks are pretty underwhelming, I'd say. For his minor perk, I'm taking Kinetic Bandolier, which reloads his gun while charging. This synergizes well with his major perk of choice, Firewalker. Combat fuel is pretty good too, but being able to charge into a group of enemies and instantly get the bonus burn damage, critical hits from his gun, and HP from his passive makes this the superior perk. It's worth mentioning, while I don't think a Mauga meta is here, if it does emerge, 2 hearts will actually be pretty solid, not for the cap time, but because of that extra 20 HPS when you're standing still shooting the enemy Mauga for entire fights at a time. Both of Orisa's minor perks are pretty strong and might be one of the hardest choices of any perk in the game. Heat Dissipator lets you fire basically infinitely if you have good enough aim, and truthfully, you can kind of just unload into the tank a lot of the time and they should be pretty easy to headshot. I'm putting Fleeting Bulwark slightly ahead though, because it's not only 100 HP, but 100 Fortify HP, meaning it's taking 45% less damage. This makes an already tanky tank that much more tanky. For her major perks, I'm going to take Charged Javelin. Bringing back her shield is nostalgic, well, as nostalgic as you can feel about a big shield, but you also have to consider that it's removing one of her strong abilities and just replacing it with another. Some perks have drawbacks, but this is a massive one. Why build a major perk only to change an ability when I could change to Sigma and get the buff from a major perk that also isn't massively nerfing me? Ramattra's minor perks are a pretty easy choice. Void Surge just increases your DPS with your staff, where headshots are also a consideration, meaning you'll have some more burst damage, where the barrier one only grants you 1 extra second of shield, and that's assuming it doesn't break before you even get the full benefit of it. His major perks are interesting and change how Ravenous Vortex can be used, but 50 health per second on an ability you already want to fight around every time is way too good to pass up. That's 150 HP, assuming you fight inside it the whole time. Always take this one. Reinhardt might just be the biggest loser of the patch. Most of these perks are kinda just straight booty. Crusader's Revolve is alright, letting you flick your shield up to start healing a little bit faster, but it won't really be relevant during most of the fights because of how much aggro you should be taking on Reinhardt. For his major perk, I'm taking Crushing Victory, which is sorta okay I guess, but charging can just be so dangerous in current Overwatch that you aren't getting a ton of value out of this either. The Shield Slam is just so underwhelming, it's not worth picking. Roadhog's minor perks are a really easy decision. Just take Scrap Hook. It's actually pretty good and guarantees you'll never hit another hook, only reload in their face again, which lets you be a lot more aggressive with your shots before throwing the hook. The extra range on the Pigpen toss is just not really relevant when you want to be comboing it with your hook most of the time anyway. His major perks are both interesting and can depend on your playstyle. If you're flanking a lot and just trying to find pesky off-angle hooks and one-shots, the speed boost is really strong. If you're playing closer to your team, the AoE healing might be extra annoying for the enemy team. I'm going to give slight advantage to the healing breather even though the AoE is really small, but I think both of these have a lot of merit. Sigma's Massive Impact perk is another one of the best minor perks in the game. Yeah, you don't have Orisa's Halt to combo with stunning people for 9999 seconds anymore, but if you yeet your rock even like 20 meters in front of you, the stun duration scales up wicked fast. I really think his major perks are worse than Massive Impact minor perk. Neither of them are bad per se, but they just aren't amazing. Hyper Strike is solid if you're getting dove on a lot, but the movement opportunities that Levitation offers are too good to pass up. It's pretty slow, but Sigma has always lacked movement, so we take what we can get here. Winston's minor perk, Heavy Landing, is really good. Increasing just one of damage or area while priming would be good, but increasing both is awesome. The alternative is pretty good too, while letting you break things like Baptiste or Illari Pylon faster, but it's just too situational, and if you pick this perk only for the enemy team to swap, it's like you don't have a perk at all. His major perks are also really cool, and Chain Lightning might be the most fun perk in the game, but his healing bubble is way too good to pass up. You have to consider the flexibility it offers, and not only being able to heal yourself, but also heal your backline who's being dove, or your flankers who are diving with you. Everyone wants to fight in your bubble anyway, so let's give them some HP while you're at it. Wrecking Ball's minor perks have the same problem where one is encouraging to boop the tank, and that's just the last thing Wrecking Ball really wants to be doing. Pack Rat is so powerful, allowing the mini health packs that you normally hardly feel to become a much more potent source of healing. The mini packs are also so often closer to the fight that taking this perk makes you a lot more survivable and annoying. His major perk, Hang Time, is always the choice. This perk's actually really strong too, making his slam so much more threatening. You might be worried that the extra wind-up time makes you easier to CC, but because of the extra air control, if you just initiate the slam from higher up, it's pretty hard to deal with. Landing on a 225 HP hero chunks them so heavy, it's so easy to shoot them in melee a few times after hitting them that it can almost feel like a one-shot. Zarya's minor perks are both good, but I'm leaning towards jump up pretty much every time. There are so many abilities and ultimates that combo well with Grav that it makes it really hard to pass up some extra mobility. Her major perk, Energy Lance, is one of the most overrated in the game in my opinion. Maybe in lower ranks where people tend to stack together more, this can be stronger, but spamming allied bubbles on your team that heal them and make them faster is just too powerful. Zarya wants to use allied bubbles most anyway since this shortens the cooldown, so why not make them even stronger? This perk is absolutely insane and is making Zarya really oppressive right now. Ashe's Sidewinder minor perk that pushes Ashe and enemies further away with Coach Gun is always the move. The other one's just not good. Yay, you can shoot faster unscoped, but those bullets are doing less damage, and it just means you need to reload more often. That's not great. Both her major perks, however, are really good. Viper's Sting is completely bonkers. If you're hitting your shots, this lets you shoot forever without reloading, and that was already Ashe's biggest weakness. It also makes the shot deal extra damage. The perk's just nuts. Airburst is solid too, but Dynamite is a reasonably long cooldown, so I'd rather just take the more consistent buff. Bastion is honestly one of the biggest winners from this patch. His perks are just really powerful. Well, his good perks are. For minor perks, I'm taking the Smart Bomb every time. The increase in mobility that you can use in both Recon or Assault mode is insane. This thing eats you. Not taking the damage is super nice too. Lindholm Explosives is another one of the most fun perks in the game, turning your Assault mode into a tank that lets you two-shot 250 HP characters. While this mode is really fun and can be powerful, I don't think it's nearly as consistent as a normal Assault mode. Also, the other major perk, Self-Repair, is just absolutely insane, so you just have to pick that one. The healing output it provides is substantial, and get this, it's not on a resource meter or a cooldown. You can just use it. Non-stop. Whenever. Always pick this one. Cassidy's minor perks are both pretty meh. Quick Draw is fun, but not really ever good. Past Noon is really funny and just turns a zoning ult into a zoning ult that you can use more often. This perk isn't amazing, but it's definitely better than the alternative. For his major perks, there's some merit to both, but gunslinging is just so much better. Combat roll is only on a 6-second cooldown, so one headshot reducing that by 3 seconds is actually kind of wild. Not to mention it reloads his gun and gives him a damage reduction. This perk makes Cassidy so much more annoying and mobile. Echo's minor perks are both super strong. This is another of the hardest perk decisions in the game with a lot of situational applications for both. I lean towards enhanced duplication because there's no worse feeling than building your ult during a dupe only to have it end right before you can really use it to its full potential. Being able to copy your teammates means you have a lot more options to copy, not just to decide which ult you want to try to use, but also just try to copy from a safer location. So really pay attention to team comps when you make this decision. Her major perk, Full Salvo, makes your sticky bombs fire more projectiles that do less damage, and that's the one I go towards as well. You need to land 8 out of your 9 projectiles for the damage trade-off to go in your favor, which is a bit risky, but when it does, you're doing so much more burst damage, allowing you to finish people off with the focusing beam that much faster. Genji's perks are pretty simple. For his minor perk, I'm taking Dragon's Thirst every time. It's not a crazy amount of lifesteal, but it definitely helps, especially when you consider hitting multiple targets with each swing or damage boosts. Acrobatics just doesn't do much either. For his major perk, I'm going to take Blade Twisting, letting his dash deal an extra 25 damage over time when used after an Elim. This extra damage helps you snowball fights and chain dash resets much faster. Meditation isn't bad, but I find it's a lot less impactful. Hanzo's perks are some of the coolest in the game in my opinion for one reason alone. While I think there's a better set of perks to take, the other ones synergize so well together and change his playstyle a lot that it could be better on certain maps. I think Scatter Arrows is really fun and better for his minor perk, and Dragon Fury is better for his major perk to just increase his DPS and threaten those high damage shots more often. However, the perk combo that lets you hack health packs with Sonic and lunge more often when wall climbing can really change his playstyle. If you just always play near a mega, you become so much harder to kill because if you get dove on, you just hack the mega under you and spam wall climb and lunge to dodge. It's worth some experimentation for sure. Junkrat's minor perk that gives his Riptire Nitro speed is so good. Sure, it nerfs the damage, but you want to be going for squishy heroes most of the time anyway, and this speed boost helps you get on them more consistently. His major perks are pretty underwhelming and raise an issue I theoretically had with perks, and this one puts that into practice. Frag Cannon, that makes his projectiles move 40% faster, is definitely strong and makes his damage output more consistent, but changing his projectile speed that much only for certain parts of the game makes it hard to consistently aim over the course of a game. You're shooting slow projectiles most of the game, and then you go to this faster projectile that changes how you have to aim, and then when the game ends, you go back to the slow one. It's just all really jarring. It's still definitely better though. The alternative is alright, but most of the time you're deading your conks in the air, so it's just not really helpful at all. Mei's Chilling Reach, which gives her primary fire more range, is the perk of choice for sure. I'd argue Permafrost is actually almost a nerf. The cooldown for Ice Wall starts when you put it down, and most of the time when you wall, it's going to get broken anyway, so the window to get value during wall is roughly the same, and the only change is it's getting a 2-second longer cooldown. Her major perks are much better though. Both have some merit and are situationally useful, but I have a preference towards Biting Cold. Hitting icicles, slowing enemies, and even stacking up to 30% after 2 hits makes the follow-up shots easier to hit. It's also just really annoying when you're spamming from range, and with the minor perk, it's some good synergy. Cryostorm makes your ice block do damage and slow, which is pretty good too, and can let you be really aggressive with how far forward you run into them spamming slows, so there's some merit to this one too. Pharah's minor perks are both solid, but I prefer the one that lets her move during Barrage. It's not much, but any movement is better than how annoying it is to just sit perfectly still. The value you get from shields is also just a lot less with the global healing passive in the game. Where Pharah really shines is her major perk, Concussive Implosion. It's a little awkward to get used to since it does change your rollouts, but having what's essentially an Orisa halt on cooldown is just bonkers, not only for your own rockets, but also for your team's follow-up. It also has a pretty wild range, so I'm taking this one pretty much every time. Reaper's minor perk, Death's Shadow, is my go-to. The reload is so-so, but being able to TP engage from further away opens a lot of new opportunities to find sneaky engages onto the backline. This minor perk also synergizes well with the major perk of choice, Ravenous Wraith. When you fade away, you get 40% extra lifesteal for 3 seconds, and when your fade ends, that's when you're at your most vulnerable anyway, so having this to help sustain you can be really potent. The Dire Triggers volley is pretty solid too and has some interesting burst damage combos that can be experimented with, but I think it'll end up being worse. Both of Sojourn's minor perks are solid, but I'm going to suggest going with Extended Mag. Soj is a character that uses a lot of ammo, so even 15 extra shots makes her damage much more consistent over the course of a game. Her ult is also already really strong, so a minor perk that only affects her ult just isn't as valuable in my opinion. Dual thrusters giving her an extra slide sounds really good, but changing her jump height to lateral movement is honestly a pretty big nerf most of the time. For that reason, I'm taking an Adhesive Siphon almost exclusively for the railgun energy generation on damage. It's worth noting that sticking an enemy with the Disruptor makes it do less damage to them, so it won't kill a squishy from full, but it still does the same damage when it's on the ground like normal. The energy generation mechanic is just way too good to pass up. Soldier 76 is another character with perks that I really enjoy. All four of them are strong and have their uses. My go-to minor perk is Field Emergency, which increases your heal station healing by 100% on critical health teammates. The other option, making Helix Rocket reload 15 ammo on enemy hits, ups his DPS a substantial amount too, but it's just not as strong. For his major perk, I have to give the advantage to agility training. Increasing his sprint speed by 20% is just too good. Being able to reload while sprinting is just the cherry on top. With that said, Stim Pack can be really strong too. The ability turns his heal station into a Stim Pack, making you shoot and reload faster, while making yourself unhealable. It's an interesting trade-off with some unique implications, but it falls short of agility training. Sombra is another big loser of this patch. I think this one's a hot take, but I actually prefer the minor perk that reduces her virus's cooldown. Her entire kit is built around hitting people with hack virus combos, and if you can open with that combo, the fight can snowball really quickly. The alternative isn't bad, but if you're playing around cover and hacked health packs well, like I think you should be, the perk that makes you run away just doesn't generate enough value. Her major perks kind of stink a lot. Stack Overflow is just bait. The increased lockout is powerful for sure, but it just makes finding those hacks too hard. It's not worth the trade-off. White Hat letting you hack your teammates to give them a heal isn't incredible, but it's not useless and it's not actively nerfing you, so I'm taking that one every time. Sim's minor perk that gives her TP an additional 50% range is just nuts. One extra turret charge pales in comparison. If it lets you have down 4 at once, that would be a consideration, and probably OP, but just one charge, it's not worth it. Her major perks are both solid, but Shield Battery, that heals you when you're nearby your telly, is better. You pretty much always want to be fighting around it anyway, so it's free healing, and the range increase on your beam doesn't help too much if you're constantly fighting around your telly and turrets. Torb is probably the biggest winner of this patch. All his perks are solid and some are just outright busted. For his minor perk, I'm taking Fully Loaded, which refills his gun on overload use. The Craftsman perk is funny, but you don't really want to be following around your tank on Torbjorn. The repair heal on your turret is a consideration though, especially when we consider his major perk of choice, Overloaded Turret. This upgrades your turret to level 3, increasing its health and damage for 5 seconds anytime you use Overload. This perk is absolutely nuts and my choice for the best perk in the entire game. Overload was already a nutty ability, and now it's even stronger. And no one shoots Torb turrets anyway. Tracer is another super winner of this patch. When isn't she though? Her minor perk increasing Pulse Bomb's radius by 50% is just so powerful for a minor perk. Blink Packs is good too, but pales in comparison. Again, both her major perks are good too. Flashback restoring all your blink charges on recall though is far better. This is honestly another consideration for the best perk in the game. Venture's minor perk, Excavation Exhilaration, is so good. While you're ulting, all your cooldowns refresh 300% faster. Turns out 300% is a big number. They're just so much more active, and this gives you so many more options with your ult, almost changing how you can use it entirely. I've had situations where I'd use 3 of my slams and then just save the 4th till the end so I can spam drill and move around, being super annoying. Venture is another character where I'd say their minor perk is better than their majors. The range increase seems nice on paper, but at the end of the day, Venture is a hero who wants to just spam abilities and be in their face, which is why Covered in Dirt is better. Venture loves their melee combos anyway, so it's just a little extra health when executing them. Widowmaker's perks are pretty underwhelming. I think focused aim is a bit better, but not by much. You already want to play aggressive when you have wall hacks up, so why not have our shots charge a little bit faster? The Venom Mine major perk is actually solid, because while Venom Mine is a pretty underwhelming ability, having a second one to grant wall hacks on a second flank can be pretty good. Running Scope Deficiency in conjunction with the Escape Plan major perk lets her play a lot more aggressively, which can be strong if you have crazy aim, but with Widow's small health pool, it's just not really playing to her strengths, so I wouldn't suggest it. Ana's pretty interesting to me because I think on paper all her perks look really strong, but in practice I think there are some clear winners. The Bouncy Nade probably has some applications on tighter maps, but the slow on Sleep Dart, especially against tanks, is downright oppressive. For her major perks, I'm giving the advantage to Shrike, letting her nano herself when she casts it on an ally. This gives her more burst healing for herself and damage reduction at will. Playing aggressive as Ana early in fights has always been really powerful, and letting her headshot is good, but the value of 2 nanos at once is just super hard to pass up on. Baptiste's minor perks are interesting, but I give the advantage to Field Medicine. The amount of burst healing available when you save someone with drone and follow it up with your regen burst or just healing nades really makes the ability a lot scarier. The alternative is cool flavor-wise, but if a teammate desperately needs healing near me when I window, I'd rather just shoot doubled healing grenades at them. His major perk, Rocket Boots, that grants him a horizontal dash when using Exo Boots, is just so powerful. I'm always picking it. You don't even need to mention the fact that the alternative is a straight nerf. I don't think I'd consider it over Rocket Boots, even if it didn't have the drawback. Brig's Morale Boost minor perk is being picked 100% of the time. Not only is it incredibly powerful for a minor perk, the other one is just offensively bad. Imagine hitting a whip shot while your tracer is near you, and then she blinks away, only to receive Inspire for 7 seconds long. It's just completely nuts. Whiplash, that lets you slam enemies into walls, dealing extra enemy, isn't bad, and you can have a unique playstyle that plays around it and lets you be more aggressive, but the quick fix perk to heal your crit allies with even more burst healing just can't be passed up on, so I'm taking that. Illari's minor perks are both pretty good, but I lean towards Rapid Construction, letting her pylon build faster and slightly reducing the cooldown. If you're playing Illari well, you're going to constantly be on the move, so the 300% faster build time can really make or break whether or not you or your teammates live a situation. For her major perks, I have to choose Sunburn. Her ult is already really strong, but this major perk makes it a lot stronger, and the alternative encourages you to play tighter to your team, which really isn't what Illari excels at. Juno's minor perks are both pretty good, but I'm taking Familiar Vitals most of the time. This makes your healing missiles lock on 35% faster, which can really make or break some situations. The alternative isn't bad by any means, but Juno already has so many movement options available to her and can be really slippery that it just feels like overkill. I'm also going to take her major perk that lets her crit every time. Reboots isn't bad, but like I said, she already has so many movement options and is so slippery that the value crits can provide just has to be picked. Kiriko's minor perk, Fortune Teller, that throws out 2 healing Afuda to an ally in front of you every time you hit a kunai is crazy. Kiri already has a unique tempo in which you can weave kunai throws and heals together that this just makes her heal output that much stronger. Foxtrot is a solid major perk, but Shuffling, letting you TP twice as long as you use it 4 seconds after its initial cast, is just crazy powerful and should be picked every time. It has defensive applications for when you're getting dove, but even the aggressive options are crazy. Imagine TPing to your tank to Suzu them and then TPing away. It's just absolutely nuts. Lifeweaver's minor perks are both good, but I prefer Life Cycle. 10 heals per second isn't a ton, but it's something when you consider how much his dash heals him and how annoying he can be to kill when spamming petals. The 250 health healing seed that drops and can only heal allies is pretty big too. Obviously, a Cleansing Grasp is strong, but there's frankly not that many debuffs, and if the enemy swaps off characters that inflict them, this perk is useless. With that said, if you only intend on playing Weaver for a point or a specific situation, this one can be really strong. I think both his major perks are pretty underwhelming power-wise. Super Bloom turning your weapon into the Needler is fun, and the damage can be surprising, but it's not really what Lifeweaver wants to be doing. Lifeweaving, however, adds 20 extra healing to your next Blossom after dashing, which might seem small, but it adds up over the course of the game with how often Weaver can dash. I'm going to give the slight nod to Super Bloom though. Lucio is another huge winner of this patch. Base Blowout is a consideration for the strongest perk in the game, and it's a minor perk. That's just wild. 15% extra knockback this early into the game on such a short cooldown is just insane. Both his major perks are pretty strong too, but Noise Violation, increasing Crossfade's range by 150% while Amp It Up is active, is a cut above and should be picked most of the time. This is a potential hot take here, but I'm fairly confident when I say it. I think Mercy's perks are really strong. Both of her minor perks have applications that help her biggest weakness, being dove. I'm giving the slight nod to Angelic Recovery, giving her some health restoration when her staff is connected to a full HP target. Most of the time when you and your pocket get dove, they're going to be focusing you as Mercy, so being able to continue damage amping your pocket, who should be helping you and healing yourself at the same time, buys them extra time to save you. I think both her major perks are really strong too. I'm going to give a slight advantage to Flash Heal though. You have to be careful when using the ability because if you try to burst heal someone and they die anyway, now you're without res, but if you use this ability well, it opens up some utility that Mercy has never previously had, the burst healing. Chain Boost is nuts too though, so I'd consider this perk when you have 2 DPS that can both be pocketed at once. All of Moira's perks are fun and encourage different playstyles, so she's a big winner of this patch to me too. For her minor perks, Vanish is better, increasing the fade duration by 0.5 seconds, but Uprush is solid too. Both her major perks are good, but I give the nod to Ethical Nourishment. Similar to Mercy, giving burst heals to characters that don't have it is always really impactful. Contamination is really strong too if you're playing a really dive heavy team where everyone can be self-sufficient and you can really focus on dishing out the damage. And last but not least, we have Zenyatta. For his minor perk, we're taking Zenith Kick. Honestly, his kick ability is really strong, but this takes it up another notch. I wanted to like Ascendance, but it's just not very good. He moves too slow and it really is just a hover. For major perks, I think they're both really strong, but I'm going to put Focus Destruction above. I think Zen's right click is sleeper broken and making it do even more potential damage and even faster, especially when you consider headshots, this perk is just really, really good.